I did the thing. I survived. I just got back from the movie theater, Star Wars Rise of Skywalker, and I got some thoughts on it. We're going to split this review into a non-spoiler section, so that way I don't completely ruin the movie for all of you guys that want to see it, and a spoiler section in which I will go through the movie almost beat by beat. Start off, this movie is definitely a movie. Definitely an okay movie. Across the board, it is okay. Like I explained in previous videos, there's no flow between 7, 8, and 9. Movies don't mesh up. And you can see that from the very beginning. They're kind of just retconning a whole bunch of plot threads. They didn't really know what they were going to do with this movie. And you can kind of tell that. The serious parts were the funniest parts. It feels like a bunch of movies put together. It feels like they took 3 separate movies and they just kind of made them into one cohesive story. It has all the beats that you would expect in a Star Wars movie, some sort of overarching adventure, some call to action. Just, it's everything you'd expect. It feels like a Star Wars movie. The acting was okay, I guess. There wasn't any stellar performances. There wasn't any interesting character development. It was definitely better than 8. I do have to say that. I wasn't as bored as with 8. The effects are pretty good. I mean, that's what these movies are, really. That's what a lot of the new blockbusters are. They're very effects driven. They're very action oriented, and you can kind of see where the practical effects and the computer generated effects, how they sync up together. It's pretty good in that regard. At the end of the day, it's probably no better than any run-of-the-mill movie that you'd see in general. It's kind of disappointing because it is Star Wars, but what can you do at this point, you know? The series have been on a slow decline. And there's still a few good things that come out of Star Wars, but these mainline movies are kind of just trashy. It's pretty across the board average. Nothing spectacular about it. So in general, I kind of give this movie a 6 out of 10. Just very average. Ultimately, this movie was made by a committee and does committee-like things. I mean, it has almost no artistic vision to it. We go into spoiler territory a little bit here. So the movie starts off, Kylo Ren kind of going into the dark side. They kind of retcon Palpatine very early in the movie, like very early. Within the first 30 minutes, you get the entire plot thread of the movie. So now Kylo Ren, he finds this tracker, and he goes to the world of the Sith. There he meets Palpatine, and he gives him thousands of Star Destroyers or whatever, or just really large armada fleet. You know, he calls it the Final Order, you know, just more symbolism for war and Nazism and all sorts of dumb crap. Then we move to Rey, and Rey is training on the planet with Leia, and she is learning how to become a Jedi. Very weird, because in the last movie, she had a whole bunch of powers and was very good at handling the lightsaber, but now she can barely go through a training course without getting the snot beat out of her by a little droid. So she's learning how to do that. Our previous crew, Chewie, Poe, and Finn, and C-3PO, I think, they were on the Millennium Falcon, and they're meeting a spy to get some information. Get the information. There's a chase sequence where they light speed warp or something, and it was just a whole bunch of visual effects at that point. I was wondering how even the light speed thing even worked, because they were going in between buildings and they were light speeding inside of like objects. It was kind of weird. After that sequence, the Millennium Falcon goes back to the planet where Rey's on, and Rey is upset that they destroyed the Millennium Falcon or something. Some more dialogue or whatever. Then they bring everybody together, and they basically relay the entire last 15 minutes that we've already seen. Kylo Ren and going to meet Palpatine. Basically, you get all that in 5 minutes. And apparently, he's been in hiding this entire time, building a huge fleet of Star Destroyers or ships or warships or whatever. And he's been doing this right under their noses. Now he's just gifted all of the destroyers to Kylo Ren for the Final Order attack. They figure they need to travel to the Sith world in order to stop Palpatine. So once Rey figures out what the Sith world is called, he goes through Luke's old books and finds information on the Sith world that he was trying to find this entire time. This is weird because we never hear about this at any point. Kind of just, again, retconned it in. They figure they need to go to this Sith guy's ship and maybe he'll have some information on where the locator is. They figure they need to go to this planet, and when they go to this planet, there's a celebration going on. You know, more Disney fanfare where they have to show all these effects and etc., etc., etc. This is when you see Kylo Ren's and Rey's first encounter. They have like a Force meeting where they can basically take things in and out of each other's world, I guess. They're talking, and Kylo Ren tells her that Palpatine wants to kill her. He still wants Rey to join him. So Kylo Ren figures out where she is, and they send people after that meeting with Kylo Ren. So they try to escape the celebration, and they run into Lando Calrissian. I guess Lando already knew about trying to find the Sith world, because apparently him, Luke, and Leia and Han Solo all try to find this place. News to us in the audience. Basically, this new crew jacks a couple speeders, and they go to the ship where the Sith is located. This is where you see the scene with the they fly. It really wasn't funny at all, even in the context of it. The entire movie was kind of just bland. There's really no funny parts except for the parts that weren't supposed to be funny. Basically, their speeders blow up and they get basically put in some quicksand. Under the quicksand, they find the Sith that was trapped there. Find his dagger. It has Sith inscription in it, and A3PO can't translate it. After this happens, some weird serpent digger thing comes out of nowhere and stops their progress. Rey sees that it's hurt and Force heals it. Basically, she puts her Force energy inside the animal to heal it. And they go and get to the ship. During this time, Rey's having some flashbacks because she held the dagger, and there's some, weird stuff going on between her character and her plot. Once they're about to board the ship, she senses Kylo Ren coming, and this is when you see the scene in which Rey jumps over the TIE fighter and destroys its wing. While this is all going on, Chewie just leaves the ship, and the Knights of Ren are behind. It's kind of a weird scene because wouldn't Chewie know that the Knights of Ren were like right behind them, and they captured Chewie. This was fairly weird. It's not like Chewie didn't give very much resistance, especially because he's supposed to be a character entirely against being chained up. So you'd think he'd offer a little bit more resistance, but he didn't. Finn sees this and runs to get the help of Rey. Cut to right after Rey destroys the TIE fighter. Finn comes up and says they took Chewie, and points to the transport ship. Rey, in her super powerful awesomeness, stops the entire transport ship from flying away mid-flight. Kylo Ren comes out of the wreckage of the TIE fighter and stops Rey from stopping the transport ships. So they're in like a weird Force battle between this transport ship. It's a pretty funny scene altogether, even though it's not really supposed to be. Then Rey has lightning shoot out of her hands, and the lightning destroys the transport ship. Seemingly, that scene was just hilarious. Everybody that was around me was just completely just laughing at it. Rey thinks that she destroyed Chewie. Then they escape. Cut to the Order ship. They reveal that Chewie is not dead, actually. It barely took them 5 minutes for them to completely kill a character and then completely bring it back. It seemed really lazy to me that they would do that. So they basically need to go to a different planet, right? Because C-3PO cannot transcribe the runes because it's in Sith language. This is where Poe has some ties to, I guess. Poe, I guess he doesn't want to go there. They eventually do. When they get there, they meet up with Poe's old buddies, female that he's had a relationship with. Then we figure out that Poe was a spice runner. Basically, he's Han Solo. They get C-3PO to transcribe the dagger that wipes C-3PO's memory clean. C-3PO up to this point was the only one that was telling at least some effective jokes. While this is going on, Kylo goes to this planet. For reasons they really don't explain, Rey senses Chewie on the ship. They go up to the ship to rescue Chewie. Rey then splits apart from the group, and Kylo and Rey have another Force meeting. And more dialogue about Palpatine and the dark side of the Force and the light side of the Force and Jedi and blah 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 blah. Kylo finally figures out where she is and goes up to meet her. The other half of the gang, they find Chewie, but they get caught. And as they're about to suffer the firing squad, the spy reveals himself. The spy is the red-haired guy that was on the council or whatever. They get in the Millennium Falcon and they try to rescue Rey. At this point, Kylo has come back and is talking to Rey. He reveals that Rey is actually Palpatine's granddaughter. The leaks were true, guys. Rey then escapes with the crew, and then they have to go to the coordinates, basically go to the planet in which the Death Star landed on, and apparently that has the waypoint. They meet some characters, and Rey goes off to find the waypoint finder in the treacherous waters. Rey finds it, and Kylo shows up out of nowhere. I don't know, he's just there. They go through a pretty long fight scene in which they're just, kind of duking it out. In another scene, Leia is going to her bed, trying to get a hold of Kylo through the Force, and she lays down and dies. At this point, Kylo Ren, he stops and he drops his lightsaber, and Rey stabs him in the abdomen. Rey does her plot-saving device and saves Kylo from certain death. Rey then takes the TIE fighter and leaves. Finn and the crew get the ship back up and running, and they go to the rebel planet base. This is where they find out that Leia has died. C-3PO gets back his memory. Rey is on the planet that Luke was on in the beginning of the 8th movie. She's burning the TIE fighter, and she's about to throw away the lightsaber until Luke's Force Ghost comes out of nowhere and captures the lightsaber. He goes, "No way to treat a weapon of the Jedi." He says that he's made mistakes in the past, seemingly because he threw his own lightsaber away because he was wrong, etc., etc., etc. Rey then understands and reconciles herself. Luke then explains that Leia always knew that she was a Palpatine. Everybody knew that she was Palpatine. It's just very weird how they do it. If they knew it from the beginning, there wasn't jack nothing. Luke then gives her Leia's old lightsaber. Now Rey has 2 lightsabers. Take them both to the Sith world. Luke's Force Ghost floats down out of nowhere and floats his old X-Wing out of the water, and now Rey is flying the X-Wing. She flies out to the Sith world. Over at the Rebel base, they are trying to figure out what they're going to do next. Poe is now the new general of the Rebels. They get a transmission from Rey's ship, which is Luke Skywalker, which is about where the Sith world is. So they basically follow her. Rey goes to the Sith world, and she meets up with Emperor Palpatine. He basically says that, "I didn't want to kill you, Rey. I wanted you to kill me so that way I can inhabit your body. I don't know why he would say this to Rey. Like you already know what's going. Like why would you explain when you know that Rey is on the light side, and why would you want to be inhabited by a Sith character? That kind of confused me a bit. They're going through this ritual, and as this is happening, the Rebel Alliance goes to fight thousands of Star Destroyers that are present. They're doing pretty decent until they're not doing very decent. They kind of get their butts kicked, obviously, by a whole bunch of ships. On top of the Star Destroyers, seemingly like out of the atmosphere, they take horses to destroy the ships. Physically, it doesn't really sound that possible, but they did it. As all this is going on, Kylo has a weird meeting with Han Solo, who doesn't seem like a Force ghost, seems like a vision, but he's real. It's kind of weird. This is after Leia died. I don't really understand it, but basically he forces Kylo Ren to do the right thing, throws away his lightsaber, and he goes to the Sith world. While he's at the Sith world, he's fighting Ren's knights, his own knights. At the same time this is going on, Rey is going through the trial that she's going to become the new Sith Empress. Kylo and Rey, they do their little Force meeting thing, and Rey gives Kylo the lightsaber. But once Rey does that, Palpatine, basically they just break off, and now they're in full fighting mode. He doesn't want to be killed by Rey, I guess, anymore. This part I really didn't understand, because why don't you just like allow yourself to be killed by Rey? But he didn't let that happen, and all his guards went and swarmed on him. Kylo then pops up, and they're fighting the people together. Palpatine then force pushes their lightsabers away, basically sucks their life force. And this connection of life force energies together completely restores Palpatine, makes them all super powerful. Palpatine, in his all-powerful Jedi-ness, shoots force lightning into the air, effectively destroying the entire fleet. Here's another thread that I missed. So while all this is happening, because there's a lot of stuff happening at like different times and all at the same time, and it's very confusing. It's very hodgepodge put together. But while this is all going on up in the sky, the entire fights that's going on, the rebels are losing, and just in the nick of time, thousands of other ships come out of nowhere, and they start attacking the Star Destroyer. And at this point, the Star Destroyers are basically eggs. They're basically made out of paper mache. It takes one ship to entirely clear out a Star Destroyer. The rebels are winning now. So after Palpatine gets his lightning, shoots it up in the air, and basically renders all the ships useless. They're all flying through the air. Who knows what's going on? It seems like it's a long time, but apparently it's not a long time. But Kylo gets up, and Palpatine throws Kylo off a cliff or something like that, and he falls down in a hole. Rey then gets up, and she's going through this. She's hearing the voices of all the past Jedi. This is where you think you'd see Ahsoka, but you don't see Ahsoka. No, it doesn't really work that way. So she gets up, apparently with the power of all the Jedi, and apparently Palpatine's super lightning doesn't work anymore. It's not as powerful. So he shoots Rey with the lightning, and it gets sucked up by the lightsaber. She's fighting him off. Then she has her like little monologue moment. I am all the Jedi. And then she gets the other lightsaber that was shot off to the side and creates an X. He then stops Palpatine and destroys it. Kylo then gets up out of his hole, stumbles over to her, and revives her using the Force life thing that Rey learned earlier. Rey then goes and gives Kylo a kiss. Right after he gives Kylo a kiss, Kylo just dies. right there and dies. This was another funny moment. It's not supposed to be funny. Kylo's dead. It's supposed to be very sad, but then he just disappears. He completely vanishes, and Leia just completely vanishes. Everyone escapes, and the rebels win. Rey goes to the old planet of Skywalker, of Luke Skywalker, and buries the lightsabers in the sand. And then you get the scene where an old woman comes up and she goes, "I am Rey Skywalker." And then that's the end of the movie. The spoilers were somewhat correct. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. It was better than 8, but it was still pretty disappointing in general. Did you see it? I don't know, maybe. It's going to be quite the talking point for a little while. And it'd probably be nice to understand what some other people are talking about. Is it a must-see? Probably not. Could you wait? Probably. I don't know. Do what you want to do.